Shambo. Today, I was talking to a friend who is spiritual, but she doesn't consider herself spiritual. She doesn't do any spiritual practice, and she doesn't have any very strong interest towards the spiritual field of interests, topics, whatever. But she definitely has a compassionate heart, and actually she does have an interest towards it. It's just that it's not very explicit in her life at this moment, and I think it will only grow throughout the years. Her brother has the same thing, same problem. They're kind of doomed to end up there anyway. And we were having a talk about me seeking liberation and why I do this, and also how it is beneficial to others. And she says that a few years ago she was studying Buddha and Buddhist teachings, and she was intrigued about the ideas or what came across or what came through whatever she was reading. And she found it very beautiful and inviting, yet it kind of got lost on her way, and we came back to this topic because I just did a Vipassana retreat, a course in which I learned a Buddhist meditation technique, and it is very clear for me that there is only one goal, it's liberation. And she said, I don't know how to, I find it interesting, but I wouldn't know how to leave behind all the suffering in this world and just focus towards my own liberation and just put all my energy there, because that in some way is what you're doing. You're completely putting yourself on an island and building up your energy and having your practice, and whatever you do is in some way in service of your own liberation, yet it is also in service of others, and that is an aspect that isn't clear at the first instant, or especially if you haven't rolled into a spiritual life yourself and you're not starting to understand what this is about and what life is about, then it may seem like this isolated, hermiting life is only focused towards your own benefit. And yes, it is, in some way, yet on another level, it's the complete opposite of that, and it's taking ultimate responsibility for everyone's well-being. So I've been pondering over this question that she asked me, and I want to cook up some answers to it in this video. So why is seeking your own liberation a way of helping the world out of suffering? Well, first thing is very clear. If you end your own suffering, and by ending it I mean completely, like enlightenment or self-realization is the complete ending of suffering. And with this Vipassana technique, it became very clear to me that this is an actual possibility, that you can actually transform yourself in such a way that there is no suffering present in yourself. This means that you become a source of light and of goodwill and of providing for others and caring for the well-beings of others that is so dependent that nothing can shake you. And that is one of the important differences between someone who is, let's say, working on their inner well-being and working on their inner equanimity, working on their strength and liberation, that they are centered in themselves like a rock and they're not so easily shaken. So whatever comes in from the outside world, they have more capacity to maintain their inner state of well-being to their choice. They don't subconsciously respond to whatever input is received and to whatever sensations is caused in the body, and then start generating negative emotions in themselves. So they also have more freedom to act and to choose very consciously, okay, maybe now I'm perceiving of this situation in a certain way, and there is some anxiety, or there is anger coming up in me, or I have a feeling of jealousy, or deep within I feel hurt but I don't want to admit it. Whatever, all these kinds of things that are happening in your system. It is not, if you are on a spiritual path, that these things are instantly gone and away and they disappear, but it is that you're trying to become conscious of them so that they don't influence you, so that you have freedom of choice to act in the world in a way that is beneficial to both your own well-being and that of others. And freedom is consciousness. Consciousness is freedom of choice. Whenever you become conscious of something, it means that you now are free. If it's not within your awareness, you have no choice. It just happens. Life just happens compulsively. While if you see it, if you see yourself and the workings of your internal sphere, the workings of your mind and emotions, the interrelation of your body and mind, and the interrelation of whatever comes to you and how you respond it, the more you start seeing it, the more you become the master of it, and the more you can choose. So that's another thing. If you become a stable human being, a strong person, a person with a strong will that is not easily shaken, you will instantly help others in a way that is stronger than if you are not a strong person. And strength comes through a lot of suffering, sometimes. Not for all of us, but sometimes it comes that way. And this I add because it can be discouraging to use those words like strong person versus ignorant person or whatever. It doesn't really exist, but the choice to suffer and yet choose how you want to be is something that can only come through consciousness of your own suffering. And that's why in spirituality you go inwards and you stop seeking outwards. You stop seeking your fulfillment in all the things that distract you in the world, because essentially, even if you don't realize it, but essentially you're running away from yourself. And there is a lot of suffering going on in yourself. There is deep layers of your mind that are unconscious and hidden and that you have repressed. And once you make that turn inside and you start observing everything that's going on there, these things come to the surface. That's also why spiritual people, or some of us, tend to isolate. Because whatever comes up, you need the time and the cocoon to be with it in order for it to be eradicated. You need a space to yourself where you can sit in your own suffering without being distracted from it, because our world and human beings have the tendency to repress it. No one wants to see suffering. It's uncomfortable. People push it down, even in themselves. It's not a loving attitude, but we do it all the time. Also with others. The people we love the most, we push their suffering down the hardest we can, because it's uneasy to see them in discomfort. And it's just a habit. You don't want to feel suffering in yourself. You don't want to feel uncomfortable, unpleasant sensations. The stronger they are, the more you push them away. So once you choose to change this, once you realize your own responsibility in facing this within yourself, in letting it come to the surface, and in thereby becoming free, you turn inwards and you create this sphere to yourself, which might be a bit isolated and also self-centered, in which you don't focus that much on what other people need, because you also realize that you don't know what anyone needs. It is very, very hard. Well, there is an aspect of life that is very clear that every human being needs, and we sure can provide for these aspects. By that I mean physical well-being, the basic level of survival that a human being needs, like shelter, food, water, a level of social connection and belonging. All these things are very essential, and we can actually help each other in having this and providing this. And a lot of people on this planet are doing important and good work in providing this for others. So this is not the kind of retreat that I'm talking about. This is super essential, and we should offer it to everyone wherever we can. But the kind of retreat from the world and from other people is because you realize that the more you allow yourself to be purified through sitting with your suffering, which can only happen in a space of non-distraction, the more energy you actually will have to do something that is stronger and more impactful and more powerful than the small and direct changes you can make, which are also nonetheless very important. Let me talk about myself, because in the end, that is what I do in this channel. Through spiritual practice, one of the things that I have learned that is worth a lot to me is how to not be dependent on other people's opinions of me. And it's still a quality that I'm growing, but I'm growing it more and more. And this for me is absolute strength. And it used to be something that I was very dependent on, even though I wouldn't admit that to myself. I have always thought of myself as an original person or a creative being and someone who chooses their own path. But deep within, I was suffering everything that every single person ever said of me or thought of me that came in as a negative thing or that in some way triggered or hurt me. And those were like ghosts in the background of my mind, talking all the time about why I'm bad or why the choices that I'm making aren't good and what I'm doing. And this is such a limitation to your capacity to actually do what you think is important. And I think every other human being has another idea of what it is that is important. So spirituality doesn't come with a clear instruction on what that is. There is no, you should be doing this. It is about how do I upgrade myself? How do I put my own body and mind to best use to do whatever I think is important? For me, liberation, the realization of truth within yourself, the ultimate, that attainment is the highest goal I can see in life. And I know that once I attain to it, and I will do so in this life, that my ability to help other people and set them free from their suffering will be the strongest thing that I can achieve. It's the strongest thing that I can see. And so if that kind of purpose or service to humanity doesn't interest you, leave it aside. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do the same thing. Whatever you see as what is needed in this world, and however you see your own contribution to it, the stronger you become within yourself, the more strong you will be able in fulfilling that purpose. one more thing. The mind is the source of all suffering. There is not a single aspect of the suffering that is happening in this world that isn't happening within a human mind and that isn't generated by a human mind. All the things, all the nasty things we do to each other, they come because of the way we are happening in here. They start here. So the greatest liberation that I could offer people is here. How to work on this. And I'm working on this myself because it isn't clear, it isn't pure, it is very confused. But I have seen that it is this way. And I have seen beings who have fixed themselves here and how they are in the world and how they provide service to others and the kind of impact that they make. And I have felt it and experienced it in various moments that these beings are on another level of service to humanity, a complete other level of service. An unimaginably beautiful and strong level of service that intends to set everything free, everything in its complete freedom. Because you can offer a person food, and you can offer them shelter, and you can offer them intimacy or connection or whatever need it is that a human being has. And that is beautiful, and that is necessary, and I thank you for doing it, and I wish that those needs are fulfilled for every human being in this world. But if you offer a human being a tool to create well-being within themselves, then whatever situation they are in and whatever they have or haven't, they can be well. So it is the strongest service you can have. The Buddha, what he did, the amount of effort he put into developing practices, first for his own liberation, to seek the truth, but at the same time, for so many people throughout so many ages, what he has offered, it is invaluable, and it is nothing in comparison to anything that, let's say, a regular human being could ever do. No matter how powerful you are on the scales of human power when it comes to money or political power or whatever it is that you have in your hands that you can put to use in this world to either help and benefit others or make them suffer and destroy them. The choice that you have there and what you will do with this power completely depends on how your mind is and how it is working. And if you make the choice, whether it be conscious or unconscious, to let other beings suffer, you are the one who suffers in the first place. You become completely miserable because of this. So even the people who are messing it all up, they are suffering deeply, and it is the reason that they keep on messing up. They are not willing to see their own suffering. They are ignorant of whatever is happening inside themselves, and they are seeking the solutions to their suffering outside of themselves. They want to fill themselves up with more of this or more of that, and they think that once I reach this goal or whatever, that they will have some fulfillment. Or they know that they're miserable, but they have no tools to get out of it, so they just distract themselves with whatever they can get, whether it be violence or sexual pleasure or just too much money and too much whatever it is that can make a human being feel some level of pleasant sensations, that is just what they will seek because they're so miserable. So ignorance of how all of this works and what this actually is, what this piece of life actually is the source to all suffering. And that is why I think seeking liberation is the number one priority to all beings. Liberating yourself of your own suffering means liberating others of their suffering. There is no difference. And then of course, when it comes to the path you take, there's many different ways. And some ways are more hermity and isolated, and some ways are through service and through taking action and just involving yourself in whatever it is that you have to offer with your absolute, complete surrender to it. That's a path to enlightenment. So if it sounds better to you to walk this path to liberation and to freedom and to knowing the truth of yourself through the world and through service to others, if that's what you feel called to and inspired by, then do it that way. If you feel called to isolate and walk as a monk for 7 years and then end up under a tree and get enlightened and master your mind by isolating yourself and not having any social contact, but after 40 years you come out as a master that can explain things in a wonderful way, or that has a transmission that hits people, that is so powerful that they don't even need the words anymore. They just understand by watching you, by seeing who and what you are, then take that path. Whatever path comes to you, it's perfect. And do it. Liberate yourself, set yourself free. It's the highest goal, it's the only goal, it's the best way to end suffering for everyone, both within and without. We are all individually responsible for whatever is going on within ourselves. Even though the circumstances can be super harmful and people can be put in a place in life that is just terrible and more terrible than probably I can even imagine. Still, you are responsible for what is happening in here. And more so, you are responsible to show other people the way out of this. Because those who end up in a place that is worse than you, and those who are ignorant, and those who are multiplying their own suffering day by day, and those who don't know how to get out of there, they need you. And they need you not only to provide for their temporary needs, but to empower them and to give them the tools to set themselves free and to start taking charge of their life and to start seeing direction. In the worst of situations, this applies. And I know that I'm speaking from a position of privilege in the place where I was born and with the facilities that I have and with everything that surrounds me. And that is why I intend to make absolute best use of this. So, may all beings be liberated from their suffering. May we all find peace and harmony and take responsibility for our own inner state of well-being, so that we can become a source of giving and liberation for others. Shambhu.